Now we're going to hear from another exceptional Eisenhower Fellow, a state legislator from Chicago, Illinois. Illinois State Representative Cam Buckner is Speaker pro tempore of the Illinois House, where he's advanced landmark legislation, including the abolition of cash bail and the Midwest's first ghost gun bill, which helped shape national policy. A former nonprofit executive, he's advised U.S. senators, counseled the city of New Orleans, and developed engagement strategies for the Chicago Cubs, which, if you know anything about American baseball, you know what an optimistic person that takes. Cam traveled on fellowship to Brazil, Ireland, and Northern Ireland, where he worked on his plans to develop what he calls the Community Safety and Accountability Hub, a resident-informed model for reducing violence and rebuilding trust through transparent public safety strategies informed by global best practices he learned on fellowship. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Representative Cam Buckner.
Good evening. I want to start somewhere uncomfortable. I was 9 years old the first time someone I knew was killed by gun violence. 9. It was my Uncle Frankie. He was gunned down on a Chicago street in an area that I now represent in the Illinois General Assembly. I remember the feeling, but more important, I remember the silence. Rooms that used to be loud suddenly were not. Something had been taken, and it was very clear that it wasn't coming back. And over time, unfortunately, that feeling became very familiar. In a 2-year span in high school, I lost 13 people close to me. Cousins, teammates, classmates, friends. Years later, there was a triple homicide in my own family. 3 generations taken in one fell swoop. And in 2016, I lost another uncle, killed while bringing groceries in from the car, caught in crossfire between 2 rival teen gangs. Where I'm from, the south side of Chicago, there's an often repeated trope that young people in certain communities making it past 25 years old is not a milestone, but a miracle. Can you imagine a life where 25 is not the beginning of your life, but the upper limit of it? And at one point, because of my surroundings, I believed that that would also be my fate. Those experiences brought me into what I call peace work. And this fellowship gave me a broader lens to do that work better. It did not change where I come from. It changed how I understand it. It shrunk the world for me, and in doing that, it expanded my responsibility and hopefully my impact. I come to this work from a bit of an unusual position. I'm the product of a tight-knit community that has struggled with gun violence. I'm the son of a police officer who knows what it feels like to wait up late at night, wondering if your father is going to make it home. I'm a police reformer who has spent years working to improve the relationship between communities and the people who are sworn to protect them. I'm an attorney and a legislator who has defended the good work of officers while insisting that the bad actors be held accountable. And still somewhere deep inside of me, there is a 16-year-old boy who remembers being laid out on the cold, wet pavement in his own neighborhood, police guns drawn, paralyzed by fear because I fit a description. So I did not come to this fellowship looking for simple answers. I came looking for better ones. In Brazil, I immersed myself in the favelas, not from a distance and not through a report, but on foot. I met people who were building safety in places where safety had not been delivered by government, by institutions, or by promises. I met J.O., whose youth center sits halfway up a hill stacked between homes that look like they were built one room at a time, one hope at a time, because they were. He told me, we don't wait for safety here. We build it ourselves. And standing there, I understood something more clearly. Safety is not just something that arrives. Safety is something that people create sometimes, piece by piece, person by person. In Northern Ireland, I walked through neighborhoods where history does not sit quietly. It presses in on you. Murals on brick walls, old wounds still present, conflict not erased, but managed. I met a woman named Siobhan who told me, we don't teach them to forget, we teach them to live with each other anyway. That stayed with me because what I saw there was not the absence of conflict, it was the presence of intention. Systems that force engagement, structures that make coexistence possible, even when it is uncomfortable. And what I learned is this: violence looks different in different places, but the conditions that produce it are painfully similar. Isolation, disinvestment, broken trust, the absence of opportunity. So when we talk about peace, let me be clear, peace is not the absence of violence. Peace is the presence of opportunity. Because if you remove violence, but you leave despair, that's not peace. That's a pause. And eventually, the violence comes back. That is why through this fellowship in Chicago, we are working to build community accountability and safety hubs. Places designed around one core belief, that communities don't need to be managed, they need to be invested in. Places where a young person can walk in before they become a statistic, where families don't have to navigate 5 systems to find one answer, where public safety is not something done to a community, but built with it. President Eisenhower understood something about this that we don't talk about enough. He was the architect of the American interstate system, but he didn't just build highways to move cars. He built them to connect opportunity and to connect people, because he understood that when people are disconnected from opportunity, you don't just create inequality, you create instability. And in too many places in this country, we've built the systems, we built systems that connected people instead of connecting them. And then we wonder why peace feels so fragile. And it is fitting, as many people have said before me, that we are having this conversation here at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia as we approach the 250th anniversary of this country. Because just down the street, as you know, this country was conceived in a moment that was not calm, it was not certain, it was not complete. The room was hot, the windows were shut, the men inside argued, they disagreed, they distrusted each other, and they still tried to make sense of a world that felt unstable and unfinished. And that room was not perfect. It was also incomplete. Women were not in that room. Black Americans, many of them who were enslaved, were not in that room. Indigenous people whose land made that moment possible were not in that room. And still, they built a framework that gave us the ability and the responsibility to keep expanding the circle. Here we are, 250 years later, in a world that is still complicated, still divided, still unfinished. Wars abroad, constitutional questions here at home, a crisis of confidence in government and institutions, people asking whether the system still works, whether it still sees them, whether it still serves them. That uncertainty is not so different from the uncertainty they felt in that room. The difference is they chose to build something anyway. And that's what this fellowship is about to me. It shrinks the distance between people, between ideas, between lived experiences, and when you shrink that distance, you expand what becomes possible. To my cohort, Sharisha, Ryan, Gabriel, Kendra, Elizabeth, Kenneth, Daniela, and Brian, we were not all in the same place, but we're all on the same journey, a journey that makes systems work better for people. To Secretary Gates, George, the trustees, staff, donors, sponsors, and alumni, thank you. You do not just invest in people, you invest in perspective. And that kind of investment does not stay in one place. It can't. It moves, it grows, it multiplies. Because somewhere tonight, there's a 9-year-old kid on the south side of Chicago, or in North Philadelphia, or West Baltimore, or Central City, New Orleans, or the east side of Cleveland, or the north zone of Rio de Janeiro, or the housing projects of Northern Ireland, trying to understand loss, just like I was. And because of what I have learned through this fellowship, I'm not just working to make sure that that young person lives, I'm working to make sure that that young person has something to live for. And if we get this right, if we build systems that create real opportunity, if we invest in people with the same urgency that we invest in problems, if we stop confusing quiet for peace, then maybe, just maybe, 25 years old won't be a ceiling anymore. Because on this fellowship, I've seen it. When people are given something to live for, they choose it. And that is how peace actually works. Thank you.